Hello there, this is Roberto Matthews with your next tutorial. This time we're going to use the toggle method for our gallery lightbox. So let's start. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to reset, like we always do, all our padding and our margins. Okay, so everything's set up so that we don't have any funky margins coming up. And just like we did last time, one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to take our pictures, and all our pictures and everything are inside of this image holder. And then this lightbox area right here is going to be the background that makes it look like a lightbox, which is, you know, that kind of opaque black background that you see. Okay. And then all of that is going to be inside of our label div here. And remember, we're using this label as a div so that we can control the click event. So basically anything that I click inside of this label will make this check work. And then the reason I have it as classes is because I have several pictures in this gallery. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our photo container. And remember that photo container is essentially the picture. It's essentially all of what's inside of the label. And since I particularly want it to be side by side, and you can set it up any way you want. This is a guide, of course. I want this side by side, so the percentage, the width is going to be 33%, so that it could be side by side. Now it looks like nothing is happening because there is a max, there is, you know, the image itself is still at 600 pixels, which is how big each image is. Okay, but we're going to get to that in a second. So the max width, because I want these to be thumbnails, is going to be 150 pixels. Okay, and then we're going to put them in line. So now they're side by side. And you have all the pictures just like that, side by side. Okay, now we're going to have to target the actual image inside so that we can make sure that it's not too big. So the next thing we're going to do is make the images 100% so that all of that could fit. So the image is going to be width 100%. And now you can see how everything is kind of fitting. It's starting to take shape. Okay. And we're going to give it a display of block so that if there's any padding around it, that goes away. And let's take away. So now we have each picture has a click event. So now we know that it's working. So let's make sure that we take away these checkboxes. So the input is going to be display none. Okay. Now, I have some image captions here. I don't want these image captions to show up now. What I want them to do is to show up when I blow up the picture, when I do the light box. Okay, so right now we're gonna move them from from the canvas. And now we're really kind of starting to look like a gallery. Okay. Now our gallery is kind of to the left here, and it's not really padded well, which is why I made the gallery an ID right here. So we're going to make it centered, and we're going to center what's inside of it. Okay, and to keep it 3 by 3, we're going to make the max width 600 pixels. Now I don't need it to be 600 pixels. I could make it, you know, 150 times 3, which is 450 with a little extra padding. But, you know, 500 or 600 pixels is more than enough. Okay, and we're gonna make this margin actually 20 pixels. There we go. So now we have a nice responsive gallery, nothing's going to happen so far when we click on it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is see what happens when our click event works. So the click event is going to be when the input is checked. Okay, and then we have to do a child. We have to do something that's below this. Okay, so in other words, if I just go to the image and say border 4 pixels, red solid, nothing's going to happen. So what I need to select actually is in the same level and then below. So I have to say Lightbox, and now you'll see that it works just fine. Okay, so the Lightbox image is going to, so now we know that our click event's going to happen when we click on it. Okay, and it's a nice toggle. So you see where we're going with this. So the first thing we want to do is that when the input is checked, we want to target the Lightbox, which is our background, that background border here, and we're going to give it a position of absolute, and I'm sorry, not absolute, we want it to be fixed, because we don't want it to slide up and down as we slide up and down on the page. Okay, and I purposely put some extra lorem ipsums here to make sure that I have a slide area. Okay, so the position is fixed, and then we're going to put it up against the left and up against the top, and we're going to make sure that the width is 100%, and so the height, and then the background is going to be RGBA so that we can give it a little bit of transparency. And we're going to go make it black, but with about 3/4 of transparency or of opaqueness. And so now you'll see that this works out like this. The only reason we don't see it, let's bring it down a little bit. Say there is our black border here. Now the only reason we see this going bigger like this is because we didn't style our holder yet. We're about to do that. Okay, so here is how we have we know it's working perfectly fine. Okay, so now let's do a little bit of maintenance. So our holder, we got to go back up to our holder. Actually, we don't have a styling for that yet, so let's create one. So for our holder, we're going to make sure that we already know that it's 100%, but we're going to make our max width 450 pixels. We can make it any size, but 450 pixels, anything below the 600 pixels, because we don't want to make it look pixelated. So now when we click on it and we make it bigger, you'll see that it restrains everything to that size. We're going to say position checked here, Lightbox. So we're going to say input checked. So the next thing we're going to select is from the Lightbox, and we're going to select our image holder. We're going to position it absolute. We're going to give it a top of 50%. Actually, let me copy this over. So now, what am I saying? That when I have the image holder, I'm going to position it absolute, and I'm going to make sure that the top is 50% and the left is 50% from the top and from the left. And to make sure that it's completely centered, I'm going to bring the transform and negative 50%, negative 50%. Okay, and we're going to make sure that the Z index for the Lightbox is on top, so that everything else is going to be on top. And there we have it. Okay, so now we have everything centered the way we want. The only thing left to do is add the captions. So to add the captions, input checked. This time we're going to go to the Lightbox. And inside the Lightbox, we're going to target the image caption. And let's, to make it a little bit faster here, let's just go ahead and copy and paste here. And let's see what we're talking about. So we're going to bring it back to the forefront. The display is going to be block. Our position is absolute. We're going to put it bottom of the picture and to the left. We're going to give it a width of 100%. We're going to put the text to the left. Our background is going to be white with some transparency, and our padding is going to be 5 pixels. So now we have our pictures and our captions, and it's all responsive here. Okay, very good. And let's make sure that this width is 100% on the image holder, so that we could make sure that it's big enough. Okay, very good. Now, what's the only thing that's left to do? The only thing that's left to do is to make it a little bit of an animation. I particularly don't want it to just click, and I'm also going to change this cursor to a pointer. So when we hover over the image holder, or when we hover over the Lightbox, let's just say that. So photo container, let's say hover. Basically, when you hover over anything, it doesn't matter. We're going to change the cursor to a pointer. Oops, I spelled it wrong here. So now anything that I hover over is going to be a pointer. It makes life a lot easier. We're going to make sure that our image holder here, let's see. Let's try the Lightbox. Transition 0.4 seconds. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now our Lightbox fades in, as you can see. And then we're going to also do the image itself. So now we have a nice transition for both the Lightbox, so the background fades in, and we have a transition for the image holder, and it'll kind of slide in. Okay, so there you have it, a nice responsive, so as you can see, it's responsive here, Lightbox using toggle, and it's nice and smooth. Okay, make sure that you subscribe so that you can have some more tutorials, and don't forget the previous tutorial that actually explains how the labels and the input checkbox and the input radio will work. On our next tutorial, we're going to talk about actually having videos with a Lightbox. Okay, thank you very, very much.